Hello everybody, Brian from the Symmetrical Cinematography Brian here. To discuss The French Dispatch is to discuss Wes Anderson. Who is Wes Anderson? What is Wes Anderson? Where is Wes Anderson? How did Wes Anderson? How could Wes Anderson? Why would Wes Anderson? If you know anything about how hard it is to actually make a movie, it's difficult to not respect the man. Even if you're not a film buff, you'd be hard-pressed to ignore the creativity in his execution. I don't think a single person has ever seen one of his films and said it was boring corporate garbage. You would never confuse it with the Black Widow, is what I'm saying. They're cozy, detailed, well-designed, they're funny and refreshing, sentimental too. They are also all the exact same. There is demonstrative craftsmanship in his movies, but they so do not give a fuck about being an identical experience as the last one. Even filmmakers who annoy people with their style, like Tarantino, have some variance in aesthetic and character if you really look. Something Anderson only does if you stand back at a Moonrise Kingdom is not animated, but Isle of Dogs is level of grasping at straws. What keeps his movies fresh is, while derivative of each other, they're so unique compared to everything else. The difference between him and your typical one-trick pony director is that, truly, nobody can do what Wes Anderson does. There are just no other movies like his. And with the limited exception of Jojo Rabbit, nobody even tries to rip him off. So, if he shuffles off this mortal coil tomorrow in some no doubt impossibly whimsical accident, his entire Wanderson genre dies with him. Also, unlike other people pushing the limits of auteur theory, Anderson is always consistent in quality. I can't imagine creating a ranked list of his movies they're so alike. However, this helps the guy come across less like he's incapable of anything else, but that he could do whatever he wants, and this is just what he decided to do. If everyone suddenly made quirky pastel visual comedy ensemble films like they were the new Marvel movies, maybe it'd get old. But treating that like a legitimately possible scenario is pure delusion. Shut up and enjoy his artisanal dessert card of a filmography. Whenever somebody doesn't like Wes Anderson, it always comes down to whether or not you care if a director makes the same movie over and over again, even if that movie is great every single time. And as I watch more and more bland garbage, the faster I end up deciding it's not worth the effort to figure that out. I guess I should say something about The French Dispatch in this review of The French Dispatch, huh? The French Dispatch is a series of 3 quirky stories being published in a posthumous final edition of an American newspaper. One of a tortured artist in prison, one of a student protest leader, and one of a kidnapped police commissioner's son. They're all perfectly paced. I never felt like one was either overstaying its welcome or ended too soon. Like most Wanderson movies, the visual comedy was largely successful. I don't know if there's a name for it, but I love when Anderson does a oneer as a character navigates an absurdly detailed environment, bonus points for each different method of traversal. The principal cast all do a fantastic job portraying their characters, especially Tilda Swinton, but Anderson pulls in I don't know how many great character actors to play supporting roles who I wish had more to do. Christoph Waltz is in this, and I can't remember if he actually had lines. Elizabeth Moss doesn't do anything, Jason Schwartzman doesn't do anything, and Willem Dafoe should have been in more of the film. It's strange the way Anderson uses actors, because just like everything else, the performances his regulars give all feel the same too across his films. Almost like they have the rest of their filmography and this chunk where they're just hanging out with Wes. Like, of all the characters he's played in his life, Edward Norton is not going to be remembered as Guy in The French Dispatch. A Wanderson film may have good performances in them, but I think the rest of his style and mile-a-minute monologues overwhelm their individual thespian efforts a little. I guess what keeps his movies from being truly meaningful in a deep personal way is I never feel challenged by them. And I don't mean challenged in a way like Synecdoche, New York or Tree of Life might do. Even movies with a similar ephemeral quality as Wanderson's may stimulate my critical or emotional sensibilities. Or sometimes there'll be the odd decision which seems artistically for the sake of itself. There is an animated segment toward the end of The French Dispatch which looked like a medium-budget Adult Swim short. The segment was funny and kinetic, but without any real purpose. I don't demand stories have something special to be animated, but when you make the change mid-film, what is the decision motivated by? The first segment has Leah Seydoux flip a guy from his wheelchair with a police baton. We've clearly established this is a heightened reality. But all of this, especially about Wanderson films not being challenging, that's obviously something standing in between them being one of the movies I value the most and merely being great. You don't necessarily have to challenge me in order to be a great film. If you're under a nice quilt, you don't have to stop and think that it's making you warm. It just is. I'm giving The French Dispatch a 7 out of 10. Anyway, did you like this movie more than me? Less than me? Well, if you care to, please tell me. So, if you like not only words, but the way I arrange and then say them, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Thank you, and goodbye.